Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining today's Beyond the Gift Card conversation. Let's give our guest another minute or so to join, and then we will get started. If you will, while we're waiting, please put your name and where you're from in the chat. We love to know who is in the room. My name is Edie Taylor Criddle. I'm the Executive Director of Healthy Communities Coalition, for those of you who I have not met. I look forward to today's conversation. Great, thank you. I will monitor the chat. I see we still have some others who are trickling in. Miss Ruby from Florida. We have Arizona, Maryland, my hometown. Thank you for joining. My name is Edie Criddle with Healthy Communities Coalition, where we are working to just bridge the gap between communities and research partners. And at a time such that we're in today, I think it's very vital for community partners to understand their power and their role in actually and their ability in driving research. So we are very privileged today to welcome our guest participant, Ms. Megan Rosenthal, who will talk to us today about how community organizations can make the most out of research partnerships. And we threw a couple of conversation starters on the flyer just to get us going so that we can expect to talk about, identifying our own research questions. What is it that we're looking for on the ground, whether we are in a faith-based organization, we're running food pantries, or if we have a women's fellowship ministry that meets monthly and is talking about ways to improve our health, or whether you're running an after-school or tutoring program. How can we make the most out of partnering with our academic friends or the independent researchers to help us tell our stories better, to help us better demonstrate our impact, and to help us convey just the progress we're making, which of course ultimately would drive additional funds and enable us to do greater work on the ground. These conversations started in March 2024, and we initially launched the conversations in response to a survey called Project Erase, which stood for Equitable Research and Community Engagement. The results of that survey allowed us to kind of frame our training needs into 4 pillars: research and program design, research and evaluation, how are we assessing the work on the ground, research and data use, collection, and analysis. What data are we collecting as community partners? What does our intake form look like? And then how do we use that data, again, to tell the story or to improve any gaps in service? And then ultimately, what we're really striving for is community-driven research initiatives where we are looking at our own data and assessing the gaps and saying, okay, we need help here. How we're evaluating these conversations, you see in this final column, our evaluation metrics. We're looking at participant rates, the transfer of knowledge. You will find the evaluation at the end of today's session, which we hope you all will complete. And then finally, kind of why are we doing these conversations? What we're prompted, and why even have the discussion? It's very important for the coalition to create community-hosted safe spaces for transparent conversations between just anyone who's interested. You know, whether you're a volunteering at the food pantry, whether you're a mentor, whether you're leading a faith-based or community organization, whether you're a student or a seasoned or new researcher. We're all in this together, and we can only impact this problem when we unify and collaborate. Um, that's why we're here. So earlier you put your kind of where you're from. I'd love to hear sort of what are your expectations today, and what prompted you to join today's session, and what's your why? You can either put it in the chat or you can come off mute to share with us. And Megan, I am presuming, because I'm not certain what's going on with my technology here, but I'm presuming and hoping that you are monitoring the chat.
I am. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely. We have lots of people here today, and we are expecting to have the conversation before we turn, just kind of a preview before we turn the reins over to Megan. What's your why? And what are you hoping to get out of today's conversation? We want to make certain yes.
Hi, this is Tammy Martin. I was going to type it, but I'm having problems with my technology today. But my why is I would like to communicate to have others young ladies to join to see how we can grow. I actually have a young lady that's coming on board that's has a health background, and she wants to join to see to also to get involved with research. And I would like to see how we could collaborate so I could grow as an organization with the young people, and we all grow together. So that's one of my whys. And so, and then to continue to learn and to engage additional board members to see how they can grow or see what we can do to, I guess, speed the process up to make things, I guess, go even, it's going smooth, but just a little bit faster, so to speak.
Absolutely.
That
Well,
makes
Tammy, thank
sense.
you for joining. So,
Okay.
Tammy, where are you based and what's the name of your organization?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had put it in the chat. I'm from Chicago. The name of the organization is Grace Sister to Sister, and it's a mentoring program for girls. And it's an adolescent program that's, that we focus on young ladies to be confident and capable. And what we like to provide mentoring services for young ladies and community support.
Great.
And
Thank you.
mhm.
Anyone else? Any researchers? I'm curious because I saw lots of researchers registered today. Any researchers want to share their why? Okay, so we won't twist your arm, right? So again, I want to introduce Megan Rosenthal, and thank you, Megan, for joining us. Megan has been a great supporter. This is her life's work. It's second nature to her, working in communities and helping to bridge the gap between communities and researchers. So without further ado, I'm actually going to turn the conversation over to Megan. I just put these conversation starters on the screen. Again, just to get our minds going and our juices flowing. So Megan, shall I stop sharing or will you just flow off of the conversations?
If you don't mind stopping sharing, I did put some slides together because everyone forgive me, I'm an academic and I can't help myself. But I promise they're shiny and have pictures in them. So
Perfect. Okay, great. I will stop sharing.
well, good afternoon, everyone. I
There we go.
am super excited to be here with you today. And as I attempt to share and fail miserably because things are not set up quite yet. Like I said, I have a few little slides to share with you all today. And if anybody would be brave enough to let me know if you are a researcher in here too, that would be helpful for me because I don't want to say things that you all already know because that would be really boring. But I am monitoring the chat, so feel free to ask your questions as we go. And then also feel free to unmute yourself and just ask, out loud too. What I'm hoping this is just a nice conversation. Consider me, for those of you all who are in the community space, a safe person to ask any and all of your questions about universities and research partnerships and all of those things. And I will do my best to answer them. And if I don't have the answer, I will find somebody who does and get back to you with that. But before we get into the meat of this, I just wanted to give you all a little bit more of a background about me and who I am, if I can make this thing go. Here we go. So by way of background, I've been in the academic space as a fully grown-up researcher for about 10 years now, but of course did grad school before that, which totally counts towards that much bigger number than 10. Have been very successful in grant getting across a number of federal organizations or federal agencies and foundations and other organizations, have published a lot of work, have founded a community engaged research center here at the University of Mississippi, which Edie alluded to earlier, have also launched another research center on our campus that was focused on student well-being and substance misuse. And as part of that, I got to host a podcast for a season, which was pretty cool, all things considered. And then in terms of content area, so things I know how to do well enough, my background in research is in qualitative research design. So that's systematically talking to people, for lack of a better way of understanding it. Have done a lot of work with community-based participatory research, so engaging with communities and community organizations, working with community engaged research and focusing specifically on community-driven research, so really helping you all ask questions that are important to you, and then helping you to find those answers to those questions. And then finally, a field of science that is focused on implementation. So how do we get really good evidence into practice faster, in a way that can spread better, and in a way that can exist in perpetuity, right, forever. So that's a little bit about me kind of in terms of my professional background, but it's also important for you to know who I am as a person outside of that. So I have rediscovered my love of Legos because now they have grown up Lego. I don't know if you knew that, but it's really fun and so much more intricate than it was when I was a kid. I have two dogs who you may or may not hear and or see at some point during the presentation, a moose and a broccoli. The white one is moose, the black one is broccoli. And then we take full advantage here in Mississippi of our really crazy long growing season and capacity to grow things that we couldn't grow where I'm from in Canada. And so do a fair bit of gardening as well. So Edie talked a little bit about this before we kind of got things kicked off here, but I wanted to just reiterate some of the benefits for those of you all who are representing community organizations to engage in research and engage in research partnerships. And the first one of those is to get answers to questions that you have about your space. You are the experts in your respective fields. We had somebody ask or mention earlier about working with young women and helping them to kind of mobilize their lives and get to good places with their wellness. I'm sure as part of that work, you have seen patterns and seen ideas or in your conversations with young women have come up with things where people are asking the same things over and over and over again. And those are really great places to start for research questions, right? Where can you start investigating that a little bit further and in greater detail? Collaborations with researchers allow you to foster new partnerships and new access to different kinds of areas of expertise. Which is incredible. Universities, and we'll go into this in a minute, universities are huge organizations that have a ton of really smart, brilliant people jammed into one place at one time. And so getting a foot in the door really does give you access to lots of different areas of expertise and lots of different people from different places. And then, of course, it is exposure of your work to a wider audience. I am always floored when I get the opportunity to talk to community organizations about the really amazing work that you all are doing every day. And I think sometimes, at least the organizations that I work with, because they're eyeballs deep in it every single day, they kind of forget or don't quite appreciate how amazing the work is that you are doing. A partnership with a researcher and a research organization or somebody who does this work gives your work exposure to a wider audience. And that exposure can yield access to different kinds of resources, whether that's funding, exposure to different marketplaces, expansion opportunities for your work. And I think that, is for mission-driven organizations is a really important thing to consider. Now, of course, in any partnership, when we're talking about equitable partnerships, it's important to consider this idea of, it's going to be good for both sides of the equation. And so from a perspective of a researcher, the work that you all do in community organizations gives us access to data. You guys are collecting as part of your intake forms, as part of your evaluations, as part of the work you do day to day, tons of really interesting and important data, and we can help you analyze that data. So researchers are always on the lookout for data, always on the lookout for ideas, always on the lookout for things that are happening in our communities. You also have access to populations of people that we as researchers might not have easy access to, right? Depending on the kinds of people that you serve in the spaces that you're doing that work. Researchers, because we're doing, writing up this data, analyzing this data, one of the other things that we benefit from, and I'll talk more about this in a little bit, are publications and presentations, right? Those are some key metrics that we're, as researchers, evaluated on to let us keep our jobs, right? And so partnering with community organizations like yours gives us the capacity to do those things, right? And then finally, an important part of a researcher's existence, is providing service, right? Providing service to the university, providing service to our communities. And so partnering with community organizations like the ones that you all represent, gives us a chance to kind of tick that box off on our yearly evaluation work as well. So that just kind of sets the stage for why I think, you know, this conversation is really important, and hopefully gives you a little bit of insight into both sides of that potential equation. So here's what we're going to talk through today, you know, just overall. But I'm going to dive right into one of the prompt questions that Edie set us up for, about writing your own research question. And so the first question, before we get to research questions, because that sounds scary, right? We're like, writing research questions. The first question I have for you is, what are we looking for, right? And feel free to put this into the chat. What are you know, if you had to think about one problem, weirdness, issue, gap, thing we don't know, what's one thing that you wish you had an answer to right now? Please put that in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer that for you. And I should warn you also, I'm a qualitative researcher, so awkward silences do not bother me at all. If I'm quiet for long enough, somebody will talk. What is one thing you wish you had an answer to right now in your space? Also, feel free to unmute yourself. Know that I am also not above calling you out individually, so get ready. What a place to start, right? Thinking about the problems that you might have, thinking about the things you might want to know about is, you know, working from kind of stuff we have to stuff we would love to have, right? The kind of aspirational view. Do you have data right now that you want to have analyzed, that you want to have some kind of summary report created for, right? Looking at if you have an intake form that you do as part of your process of taking on new clients or working with new members of your community. Do you want a report generated from that to let us know who's there or not? And are you getting the kind of people that your mission is hoping that you achieve, right?
Megan, if I may, I'm reading in the chat from Anna Brown. She's hoping to learn how to effectively collaborate with researchers to identify and address community needs, and to develop practical solutions that make a positive impact. So, Anna, if you could unmute. Well, I guess we're wondering, is there any particular field or industry that you're looking at? Have you already defined the program, or are you kind of at the inquisition stage and you're learning what you can? So I wanted to highlight that, because there may be just many who are just trying to get information and figure out where to start, or they may be at such a grassroots level that we may not even be sure about the data, that when we are collecting registrations, that when we are having people sign in, you know, to collect anything, that you're collecting data. And I believe sometimes we have a mixture in the audience of community and faith-based leaders who don't fully recognize their role as researchers.
Got you.
Okay.
I think that, so the way that I approach this kind of work is to think about, like, everything you do has the potential for being research, right? And for each of your respective organizations, what you are interested in having happen is doing the best you can for the population of people that you serve, right? You want to give them the best opportunity to advance themselves, the best opportunity to have the kind of health and well-being that is of interest and of value to them. And all of those things are opportunities for research, right? Opportunities to investigate. Are we really doing what we want to do? Are we really capturing the people that we want to capture as part of this work? Is there an opportunity for us to get feedback from our clients or the people that we serve to do our work better? Is there really amazing things that we're doing right now that other people need to know about, right? That this could be a best practice that spreads across our spaces. And so I would encourage you to think about, you know, the starting place is everything you do is the opportunity to collect, to do research, right? And so thinking through some of the questions that we have on the screen right now about the clarity of, like, what is it that you want, right? And maybe you don't know yet, and that's okay. and we'll get to that in a second too, right? You might not know, and that's fine. And I will share these slides with you all so that you can go home and digest them and think about them and refer back to them as well. Because I know sometimes that can be hard. I would encourage you all to think about too, like, what are the kinds of tangible items that you're interested, right? Like, how do you want this data to be provided? Are you looking for reports? Are you looking for one pagers that you can share with your elected officials, right? Because we know everyone's attention span is very limited. Elected officials seem more so because they've got a lot of fires that they're fighting at any given moment in time. And so is there like a picture, an image, a few points that we can help you put together that can share the story of the work that you're doing? Those are opportunities for us to hone, as researchers, to hone our skills in communication and help get the word out about the amazing work that you're doing. Are you looking for educational materials? So that could be to, education for your staff team to do their work in a better way. Could be educational materials for the people that you're serving, your clients, right? We also see, and in the work that I do, one of the other things that we often run into with the community organizations that we work with are things like policies and procedures, which are so totally unsexy and not fun. But having a systematic way of, like, how do we host meetings? How do we intake new clients? How do we engage with the community partners in our space is incredibly helpful for, maintaining and sustaining the work that you do. And then also working towards sharing that information in a systematic way. And so that's kind of things to think about. Are there questions that you all have about kind of where we are starting, right? What are we looking for as we start to think about research partnerships? Please don't be shy. There's not a question you can ask me that I will think anything of. So when it comes to writing your own research questions, and I'm giving you this just for informational purposes, because I know the idea of doing that by yourself is totally scary, right? And I was scared about doing it when I was a baby researcher as well. But you want to be thinking about, as you're working through kind of what are those issues you want to solve, are who are the people that you're working with? Are you interested in getting more information, getting new data about the people you serve, about the people you're serving with, right? Your partners, your staff people, your volunteer group. Are you interested in getting, information about your larger community? So who is it that you want to know more about, right? What is the information that you're interested in gathering? Do you want people to report to you, your clients to report back, yeah, we really like these services, or these webinars are boring, or the educational material is really great? What is the information that you're hoping to gather, right? And being as specific as possible around that is really key. And then finally, what are you hoping to accomplish with answering this question? What do you want to be able to do? If I know that my clients don't like meeting on Monday nights, or a more specific example, here in Mississippi, Wednesday is Bible study night. So if you're hoping to have a meeting on Wednesday night, you best think again, because many of your folks who are interested in coming are likely not going to be able to be there because there'll be a Bible study, right? So knowing those kinds of pieces of information about your clients is really important when you're looking to host those kinds of meetings. Researchers can help you answer those questions, okay? So once you've got a sense of what you hope to gather information about what your problem is, right? And you don't even have to, get into the weeds on this, just have a broad sense. Before you reach out to a researcher to get more details from them about how they might be able to help you, it is really important and helpful that you have put some thought into how quickly do you want these answers or need these answers. Because we're all busy and we all have a million kind of like respective, metaphorical irons in the fire, right? And so it's really important that we know as researchers what your timeline looks like. I would encourage you to be realistic and forthcoming, right? So like yesterday, we can't do that. Obviously, I wish, but we can't do that. But also, not having a timeline or saying, oh, well, this will be good next year, when in fact you need it in the next quarter or the next month, isn't going to help you either, and is not going to be a great way to foster your partnership in that relationship, right? So be realistic with those expectations, but also tell us, be sure to communicate to the researcher exactly, what your timeline looks like. And then I would also encourage you to think through what are the resources that you have available to contribute. As part of the kind of community-based participatory research ethos that I spend a lot of my time in, everyone has something to contribute, right? You have knowledge, you have expertise, you have access to populations, you have internal staff power, volunteer power, you might have access to funds, right? I know a lot of the people online today receive grant funding and have to do evaluation work as part of that. And so I would encourage you to think through what are those resources that you have available that you could contribute to that partnership. Now, I know one of the things that we were meant to talk about today is, how do you find a researcher? I spent some time on the front end thinking through with you and outlining some things that you can do to prepare to do that. Because when you reach out to a researcher, just like me sitting in front of you or having you on the phone, we have a limited amount of time to get their attention. And so the more upfront work we can do, the more successful that conversation will be, right? So into the nuts and bolts of how do you find a researcher? You may or may not be looking for a bench researcher, but I just thought this was a fun picture, okay? So using the keywords from the clarity materials they went through, what is your problem? What are you looking to do? Your organization's mission and vision, capture those keywords. Step one, capture those keywords into a list that, and thinking about those questions that we looked at back here, put those into one place and one page that you can kind of refer to as part of this process, right? So you're gathering all of your information into one place. That's step one. Step two is tracking down people who have those areas of expertise within the university. And what I'm about to do is kind of giving you, and please somebody stop me in the chat if you guys know this stuff already, but I thought I would give us a little overview of how universities are generally structured, because from the outside looking in, it's a big mess of stuff, and it's really hard to begin to track down how you would do that. So the University of Mississippi, we have 8 schools and 1 college. Okay, so we have a School of Accountancy, Applied Sciences, Business Administration, Education, Engineering, etc. And then we have the College of Liberal Arts. Within each of those schools and the college, we also have a number of departments, and the number of departments within each of those units can vary wildly, right? So the College of Liberal Arts, for example, I think they have 15 or 20 departments within the college, and the department within the college is, think of it as a targeted area of expertise, right? So within the College of Liberal Arts, we have the Department of Anthropology and Sociology, right? So those are our folks who are interested in learning about how groups of people work and function together. We also have the Department of Music, right? So that department is focused on music creation, music theory, music playing, those kinds of things. So there's a wide variety. I want to give you a kind of a little bit of a deeper dive just into one of those units. So within the School of Pharmacy, which I'm a faculty member in, we have 4 departments. So we have the Biomolecular Sciences, Pharmacy Administration, Pharmacy Practice, and Pharmaceutics. So what you can do as you start to think about those lists of keywords and things you're looking for is to begin on the university webpage to essentially Google them, right? So looking for, how do I find people who know about education? How do I find people who know about early childhood development? How do I find people who know about health and wellness? And that way you'll be able to target into one of those specific departments or areas, okay? Then you can begin, once you find that department, you can begin diving into who those researchers that you might partner with and reach out to are, and then how to begin to approach them. With that in mind, I also wanted to kind of give you an overview of the life of a researcher, right? What do we do on the day-to-day basis, and how do we get evaluated in doing that work? Because I think it's important, again, from the outside looking in, for us all to know a little bit more about how we all work, and that helps us approach each other in better ways. So a researcher, is evaluated, a professor, a faculty member is evaluated on kind of 3 big components, right? So first is teaching. So we all have to teach classes. And for any of you who went to college, you know that, right? We teach classes. We, provide that training for you to go out into the world. The number of classes any faculty member teaches varies wildly, and depends on the department that you're located in. As part of our teaching load, we also supervise students, undergraduate and graduate students. And for myself, I often have students working with me on research projects, right? So if there's a call from a community to help do some evaluation or they want to partner on a research project, I will have students helping to do the legwork of those projects, whether that's doing interviews in the community. We have some students working with us right now. We've had a number of students working with us in the past, administering and rolling out food prescription programs in various areas around here in Mississippi. Lots of different things like that. So that's kind of the teaching bucket. The second bucket, which y'all are most interested in today, is research, right? How do we generate new knowledge and information that can help us all live better lives? That's really the goal of research, from the bench, molecular level stuff all the way up to implementation into our communities and to policies, et cetera. For researchers, that involves grant writing. That involves doing research projects. That involves publishing our work and sharing the results of our research projects with a broader audience. That involves doing presentations at academic conferences or in partnership with community organizations. And then, as I said before, the third bucket is the service component. So giving back to the university, the school, the college, the department, and our community, right? So these are the things that kind of make up how we are evaluated. And I say this to say, our time, just like your time, is divided across a number of things that mean that sometimes we may not be as responsive, we may not have as much kind of capacity to engage in work. We might have to be disappointing about timelines, right? I can't work on this semester. Right now in this quarter, we might have to wait until next quarter to do that, and so that you can have my full understanding and engagement in that work. Okay. So questions about kind of the structure of the university or the structure of faculty researchers' time and effort.
I think this is really great, Megan. Just kind of giving us some insight into the obligations, not only the structure, but the obligations of the researcher. Because I think as community partners, community organizations, we look at our capacity. And so it's great for us to actually, understand each other's capacity as we even consider going into partnerships.
And that was really my goal, right? Is so that we can kind of all start on the same page of knowing and understanding where we're starting from. And being able to set those expectations with each other as we grow those partnerships, so that neither of us is disappointed or left kind of like holding the bag, so to speak, with the work that we're going to engage in together. The next thing I wanted to share was some quirks of universities to consider. And again, these were things, honestly, many of these things I didn't even really fully understand until I started working at a university. So there's literally no reason for any of you, unless you're like, are intimately involved in university structures, to know these things. But again, just so that you can understand responsive times and things like that. So to begin with, the potentially strangest thing, most faculty who are tenured faculty at university, so full-time researchers, full-time faculty members, work on 9-month contracts. What that means is that in the summertime, so kind of at the end of the semester after graduation in spring semester in May, some faculty disappear from campus and don't return until the end of August or beginning of September, depending on when their year starts, right? So if you're looking to reach out to a faculty member because you have some downtime in the summer and you don't hear back, don't assume that's because they don't want to talk to you. They just might not be in the office, and their faculty, like many people, are not always really good about putting their out of office on, right? So it's not, no response in the summer does not mean and should not be equated to they don't want to talk to you. Semesters have a rhythm to them for us, right? So the beginning of the academic year, end of August, early September, very busy, right? Same if any of you have kids, getting kids back into school after a summer break, it's chaos, right? There's a lot of things going on. You have paperwork to fill out, you got people to get in order and going in a good direction. So that's a time to think carefully about reaching out, right? Or be patient in your efforts to reach out at that point in time. Again, no response at that point doesn't necessarily equate to they don't want to talk to you, but maybe we're underwater and just barely trying to survive, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, nothing happens during those times. I expect it's, not dissimilar for many of you. Once we hit that Thanksgiving kind of holiday break, everything is essentially shut down until the new year. We're getting students finished their classwork. We're finishing off projects. We have account things to worry about in that time frame, and so things are very slow during those time frames as well. Now that gap between Christmas, New Year's, and the beginning of the academics, the spring semester, which usually starts towards the end of January, kind of a bit of a sweet spot there, that people have a little bit more additional bandwidth because we're not teaching yet, right? And so that'd be a good thing or good space to be thinking about that. And then, of course, the end of the semester, in the spring and in the fall, crazy times of year, right? We're getting students graduated, we're finishing up our work, we're making sure exams are taken, filed. Any of you who work in a teaching space, you know, students are amazing in their capacity to come up with questions and things that are weird at the end of the semester where you're like, I haven't seen you for 4 weeks. What's going on? And so those are things to think about. The other, you know, and this probably is not a surprise, the thing is not a surprise to anybody in this call, universities are bureaucratic entities, which means there's lots of paperwork, there's lots of things to consider, and this, you know, has an impact on our timelines, right? Has an impact on our capacity to engage, depending on what it is that you're looking for. I would say the most important piece of this to consider is if you're doing a grant, you know, co-writing a grant with a researcher, there are time points in that process that need to be kind of done so that this university can be part of that grant, that are beyond the control of the researcher, but take time. And so, example, we've had this happen multiple times where folks have reached out from the community to say, hey, we have this grant that we're interested in applying for. Would you partner with us on this grant? Oh yeah, and by the way, it's due in a month. While I would love, and we've always done our best to mobilize to do that as quickly as possible, that's not always something that we have the capacity to do, not because we don't want to, but because our internal systems for checking and balancing and all of that kind of stuff just take a lot of time as part of that kind of bureaucracy. And so I wanted to leave you all with some sweet spots to consider as you're reaching out, right? So that you can be, the chance of you getting a non-response is lessened. So kind of mid-September to the end of October, you know, early December to Christmas, after the New Year's until the beginning of that semester. After February is like after the semester has begun, before spring break, because then spring break, everything's lost. And then kind of post-graduation are really good times to consider reaching out if you're looking to reach out to a researcher. So questions about kind of university quirks, and are there other quirks that you all have experienced that you would be willing to share, and I might be able to shed some light on, you know, what might have happened in that moment in time.
Okay, Megan, so it looks like you and I are in conversation, right? So no, I really do appreciate this. However, I'm thinking that it feels like a launching pad. This conversation, it's very insightful, but I think it feels like a launching pad to another series of this. The other piece is looking at, the quirks, just to use your language, the quirks and considerations, again, on the community side. Because there's so many, with the limited capacity, with one person doing 5 roles, with people coming out of pocket to fund the programs, with lack of funding, and the leaders who are also working full-time jobs while running these operations and doing great work in the community. So then the conversation becomes, what's the best use of our time and what strategies to use for us to collaborate when we know that collaboration is key to making a difference. And I think that's where we probably will need a panel conversation of community partners. And then also, when I say strategy, there are some students, how can the community organizations utilize students to further their work outside of, to further their work, or, to assist in light of the limited capacity. I think those types of things, that's just kind of what's circling around in my head as I listen. This is really good information, and we're probably have about maybe 5 more minutes before the hour is winding down.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to skip ahead some here. I have, and again, I'll share these slides with you. I'm going to go to the next one here just because it'll help kind of close the gap or close the loop on, okay, so you're reaching out to your researcher. You found somebody, find a group of people. I would encourage you to find a group of people to reach out to initially. You found some people you want to talk to. I would start with an email, right? Start with an email outreach to that faculty member or to that group of faculty members that you might be interested in engaging with. And just be thoughtful about how you know, just like any of us, any of you, I'm sure your inboxes are always overflowing with emails to read. And I don't know that this is a safe space. If the subject heading isn't eye-catching, I'm like, do I really need? And I don't know the person who's emailing me. Sometimes I'm like, that might be deleted automatically, or it might be like, I'll get back to that when I have a minute to get back to that. And then of course it gets to the bottom of the inbox, right? So be thoughtful about, you know, how you're going to craft that subject heading, like research opportunity. That is going to catch my attention all day long. If I see something like research opportunity or, you know, collaboration request or, you know, those kinds of things, that's going to catch my attention and I'm going to open that email to look at it more closely. If you don't get a reply, 7 to 10 days, get on the phone. I think that's a reasonable amount of time. Sometimes it can feel like super overwhelming to do that, especially millennials. We just don't like talking on the phone, right? We're like, ooh, calling, ooh. Get on the phone. You might not catch the person in the office that day, but you can leave them a message. We all are required, at least at my institution, to have voicemail messaging capacities. So leave a message and ask them to return your call. And be patient, but persistent. And that I'm going to take to the last little thing here before I kind of close out. Don't give up. If you want to get this done, if you have something that you really need to get solved, don't give up. Keep persisting. If you can't get a faculty member to reply to you, offices of research, offices of community engagement are great places to go to, and they have staff people whose job it is to answer the phone and answer emails. And people in those spaces know many people across their campuses to make those connections. And the final thing I'll say to y'all too is that you can reach out to me. So I have a side job, just like everybody has a side job. I have a side job in working to connect community organizations with universities. And so if you need somebody to be that bridge, to be that translator, to sit down with you, to go through what are the questions I have, what are the things I want to talk about, what are the opportunities I have for engagement, we can work together on that. And I'm happy to help you with that process so that you, oops, I just wrecked that. That you can, I'm going to put my email address in the chat here, so that you can get those questions answered, and make those connections with each other. So thank you all so much for your time. I know that was a lot of material. I feel like I fire hosed everybody, but hopefully you found that helpful, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you all have outstanding.
Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you. I'm clapping. Thank you so much. Questions and answers. Anything specific to your organization? Did you get your objective met?
And you won't hurt my feelings if you say no.
I did.
Excellent.
I think you answered a lot of questions that I had.
Good.
And I couldn't really know how to ask it. And so I think Edie even stated some of the things I wanted to say, but couldn't find the words to say it. So yeah, I think this was very helpful.
Good.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Thank you, Eli. I have left in the chat our feedback, our evaluation. We're talking about data and evaluation. Please share your thoughts. We absolutely want and need these conversations to be impactful. They're created to help empower community and faith-based organizations. That is why we're here. So I saw in the chat, I'm not certain how this message came across, but I saw in the chat requests or questions about being compensated with a gift card. So what I can share with you, kind of frankly, is typically my experience and the experience of those who I've worked with in community. I worked with community members and researchers for actually now probably about a decade. I started in Baltimore, Maryland, with Johns Hopkins, and many of what I saw and what I experienced was just going into the meetings and actually getting a gift card, but not knowing like kind of what was happening and not being able to explain why I was there. And that was part of the impetus behind this series is to move beyond that gift card to actually understanding not only our role, but the role of research in our work, and more so our power and our equitable position in communities as being those leaders, as being those on the ground soldiers, those who people know and respect, who can shape health outcomes and create positive impacts in our communities. So thank you again for coming. Oh, great, great, great. I'm seeing more positive feedback. I'm going to share my screen. We have about a few moments left. I'm going to share my screen. I'll share the evaluation code with you. There's a QR code. If I can do this share screen quickly. Let's see. Also, our next event is at the end of the month, July the 30th. It's a meet and greet for those who are in the Chicago area. It's a hybrid event, so you can join online, but you can also join in person, join us for lunch. And we're hosting both researchers and community members, again, just to continue the conversation around community-driven research partnerships. And again, we're trying to foster trust, create these safe spaces where we can have conversations that matter, and where we can, just share with one another and connect. Are you able to see my or anyone? It looks like we're sharing. So here's the QR code for the event on June 30th. It will be held in Foster Park. Once you scan the QR code on the left side, you'll actually see the details for the meet and greet. And we're starting this session with prompts. All right. So hopefully it will help foster the conversation. Like I don't know if you can read this, it's kind of blurry, but the prompts may say, I have a concern about, or it may say, I'm interested in ... Or if you're a researcher, it would say, my research interests are, I'm looking for this kind of partner. So those types of questions, those types of prompts will be given to everyone in attendance, whether you're online or whether you're in person, and we'll have lunch. And lastly, please get involved. If you're a community partner who has experience with research partnerships, or if you know how to create your own evaluations or assess your data, consider being a panelist and joining us. Volunteer. You can scan the QR code on your left. The evaluation QR code is on your right. I also put the link in the chat. And then lastly, we accept any kind of donations. Of course, it's not required, but if you like the work and you want to support the work, primarily these funds go to supporting the purchase of equipment during our hybrid meet and greets, so that we can, try to make everyone feel like we're close, we're in the same room, and that technology is a bit expensive, and we're all volunteers. So thank you again. I will leave this screen up. Megan, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for attending and participating today. Please share your thoughts. Let us know what other topics you'd be interested in learning more about or on presenting on. We would love to have you. Thank you again. So have a wonderful day. I will leave this up for another moment. Oh, okay, wait. I see Eli says, do you have the link? The link for it. I have the link for, here's the link for the evaluation. And then we'll also send the presentation out. And we're also recorded. So we'll have it posted on the site. The link to the evaluation is tinyurl.com / for the June 30th event. Yes, okay. That is BTGC June 2025. Okay, great. So I've just shared the link for the June 30th event for the meet and greet. Let's see, there are other messages. Yes, thank you, Megan. You will get the link once you register. Great. Well, it looks like we're slowing down, so we're actually able to give everyone 5 minutes back of your day. Thanks again for joining. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend.